Tanks are venting for prop load.
Attention operators, this is Launch Director on Countdown with abort instructions. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort the launch auto sequence immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Just wanted to update with regards to collision launch avoidance. We have no closures at IT0. And we're looking forward to successful launch and landing. Share the day with Colonel Eileen Collins, as today was when she became the first female shuttle pilot. So with that being said, in the spirit of the Winter Olympics, go USA, let's beat China, and be vigilant. LD out.
Launch auto sequence has started.
Good evening, you are watching live views of Falcon 9 as it is getting ready for its liftoff today from LC-409A with some Starlink missions, and we just heard a call out that prop load has begun and launch order sequence has started. And
we also had the Vandenberg Space Force base launch, which was the NROL 87 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office, carrying a classified payload into orbit.
That's right. I mean, we had two return to launch site landings this week, which was pretty cool. So always the Vandenberg shots are always amazing, where you can see the Falcon 9 lifting off in the background, and then the booster coming in for a landing. They're pretty cool. And then obviously the other one at Cape, which I missed. Oh no, wait, I missed the NRL mission by like 3 minutes or something. Well, what can you do? Yeah, it was kind of sad because that marked my like that was the ending of my 2-year launch washing streak, so I haven't missed a launch in like 2 years. And yeah, bit unfortunate, but
We are currently at T-minus 31 minutes. We should have had confirmation for prop load. And as a reminder, if SpaceX do not launch during this window, they have a backup opportunity tonight at 9:30 GMT, which is, I believe, 4:30 Eastern.
do we know if they're go for propellant load? I didn't. They are?
So we have confirmation for go for propellant load.
All right.
All right, awesome.
So we're approaching T-minus 30 minutes, right?
Yep.
In just a few seconds. Well, that's always cool. So at T-minus 35 minutes, they usually start RP1 loading, right? So so the poll is at T-minus 38, and the RP1 loading starts at T-minus 35, and the logs also at T-minus 35, right? I'm not sure right now. Yeah, so the first stage is currently already loading propellant and oxygen for the mission, and the second stage starts in so the logs begins to start loading at T-minus 16 minutes, and yeah. So in about 15 minutes, the second stage will be loaded as well.
Within 9 minutes, we should hear the confirmation of stage 2 RP1 closeout, which will then see the event.
So the big 20-minute vent.
Yes.
All right.
And if we see that T-minus 20-minute event, we know we have a very good chance of an on-time liftoff at 6:13 p.m.
It's also an instantaneous launch window, right? We don't have any.
Yeah, we have, and then we have a backup opportunity tonight at 9:30, or 4:30 Eastern time if they do
Okay.
not launch.
Yeah,
But
but I mean,
currently
they
we
don't have
have
like.
green. The weather is green, and we are go for an on-time liftoff.
Perfect.
Today's mission utilizes a previously flown booster, and that booster will land on the drone ship, which today is a shortfall of Gravitas. And today's booster is B1061, which has flown 6 times.
Right. And a shortfall of Gravitas, that's the 5th landing, right? If I think
Not
it's the
sure.
5th or the 4th. I can't remember. So it's the new drone ship in the fleet. Of course, I still love is on the west coast right now, right? It was, or was it just read the
Correct, yeah.
instructions?
Austin
Oh,
is
right. It
part
was.
of the
Of course, I
West
still love
Coast
you.
fleet now.
Right, for
So
all the Vandenberg launches.
Austin supports Vandenberg, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and just read the instructions, and a shortfall of Gravitas is still at Cape.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and a shortfall of Gravitas, really, I think it's my favorite one. It just looks the coolest. Like it would be a ship from like Batman or something.
Indeed, yeah. This one is meant to be the first fully autonomous drone ship as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so at least that's what Elon said, that it could maneuver all by itself. Although I think I've seen it in like it got towed a couple of times, just
Yeah.
probably for assistance. But it technically has the capability of doing everything completely autonomously from leaving the port, catching the booster, I suppose, and coming back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where the other drone ships, they only could like hold their position, right? They couldn't
That's
drive
correct.
back.
They could only hold
Right.
their position. They couldn't move autonomously. They couldn't mark a course on their own, and they had to be
Right.
towed by tugboats.
Yeah. So it's obviously a big upgrade, but size-wise, it's pretty similar, right? It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it's more. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably like the actual like proportions and stuff are a bit off from just read the instructions, and of course I still love you, but roughly it's about the same. Yeah. So all right, so yeah. So the landing field is like the area where the booster actually lands on is probably the same, and it's just the edges are cut differently.
For those of you who may only just be joining us, good evening. I'm MJ, and joined by me today is Philip. We are live for the SpaceX Starlink 47 Starlink mission to orbit, and this will lift off from Launch Complex 39A Kennedy Space Center in Florida at 6:13 p.m. GMT or 4:18 p.m. Eastern.
I wonder if anyone like kept track of how many Starlink satellites are actually in orbit right now, and if there is a way to see how many Starlink satellites actually survived and didn't
Actually,
deorbit yet.
we do have someone keeping track of Starlink satellites in orbit, and he
Really?
goes by the name of Jonathan. Jonathan McDowell, also known as Planet4589 on Twitter.
Ah,
He keeps track of orbits of satellites, deorbits, re-entries, and yeah, he's a pretty good person to follow if you are interested in when satellites are discarded or they re-enter. So yeah,
so he just keeps track of everything and also kind of like searches for the satellites.
he does. Yep.
Oh wow, that's
I'll leave his link in the chat of the stream. So if you want to go check him out and go give him a follow, please do. He's a very cool guy.
yeah. So that actually seems like hard work. I mean, we don't have any big information on how the satellites are doing most of the time, especially when we have like a big constellation like Starlink. It's hard for like SpaceX to officially say satellites, whatever they call them, is now dead and deorbited. So it must be hard work to keep track of everything. I
Yeah,
wonder if how he does that actually.
it would be cool to know how he managed to keep track of each satellite and catalog their orbits. I mean, it's quite interesting. I would love to know the background behind how he does it all.
Yeah.
It's something I'm definitely keen to ask him, and maybe one day we could get him on Spaceflight Hub and talk about it. It would be interesting.
That would be pretty awesome actually.
So coming up at T-minus 22 minutes, we are a few minutes away from that stage 2 RP1 closeout, in which we will then see the T-minus 20-minute vent in rapid succession. Following the 20-minute vent, we should count down to around T-minus 15 minutes when SpaceX will go live.
Yeah, so we're just gonna switch over to the SpaceX live stream once it is up. because they tend to have the best views, especially the onboard views down the first stage and the second stage video feeds. So once SpaceX is live, we're gonna fade over to the SpaceX live stream just for the views, and we'll continue with our commentary.
Indeed, but as always, it's thank you to Spaceflight Now for providing the video feed of the Launch Complex 39A.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, currently we see the orbital line. The space, the stage 2 is gonna do a slight dog-leg maneuver once they separate it. Oh no, actually, it's gone. But yeah, we just saw that the second stage is gonna do a slight, like a little dog-leg maneuver, so it changes the inclination of the orbit while it is firing prograde, just to avoid land masses in case something goes wrong, and the populated areas are not going to be affected by any debris that might be falling down. So yeah, that's why the dogleg is happening.
Yep. So coming up on T-minus 20 minutes, we should see the T-minus 20-minute vent here shortly, with the stage 2 RP1 closeout call being heard.
Right, so they just vent out all the lines and stuff in preparation for launch, right? It's just that the lines are empty and there's no propellant still left.
You see it now on your screen, the T-minus
Right.
20-minute vent coming from those lines in the transport erector.
Stage 2, RP1 load is
That's a good indication that we are currently on schedule for an on-time liftoff here this evening. Good evening, Luke Dehan. Yep, that's us.
I wonder what if they aborted now and they would have to like unload all the propellant. Where's the propellant gonna go? Are they just gonna put it back into the into the tanks, or
Yep.
how does it work?
So it's exactly like you see with Starship, I think. So they'll detank all the tanks and they'll revert it back into the tanks they have at pad.
Right. I suppose for RP1 it's fairly easy because you can just like it's basically kerosene. I mean it's colder, but yeah, it shouldn't be that big of a problem. But I feel like oxygen might be harder to do because it has to stay really cool while transported. And actually, where
Yeah,
are the tanks? So I mean, I suppose at Pad 39A they're somewhat underground sometimes, but there are also exposed tanks around, right?
there's tanks all around Launch Complex 39A. I mean,
Right.
you can kind of just see one on the screen at the moment. If you look at the bottom of the launch pad, you can just make out a white tank.
Right.
That's one of them. And there's plenty more of those dished out around the pad. And I think in the foreground of what we can see at the moment, it looks to be part of the tent for what could be the upcoming Starship facility.
Yeah, so that was what I was wondering about is the big round like concrete pad on the southeast when you look on Google Maps, southeast of the launch pad, is that actually where the tower or the launch pad is going to be? Do we know anything about where uh, roughly the Starship pad is going to be?
So we believe it's exactly where that's meant to be. So
Right.
it's going to be quite close to the Launch Complex 39A, but yeah, we don't fully know all the plans for it yet, because things could also change. But we
Right.
will definitely keep an eye on it, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they develop it, like they have at Starbase.
Yeah. So there are
And it'll be
these.
interesting to see if they name this Starbase 2.0 as well.
Yeah, or maybe they'll come up with a different name.
Maybe.
Yeah, I guess we just have to wait and see because they're this big like round road around the whole launch pad, so with a weird shape. Um, and I suppose that's like kind of um marking the end. Like it's just to show where the endings of the pad are, and
Yeah.
I suppose it's going to be within that area. I mean, it would make sense. So yeah, and I wonder also how fast they're going to build the launch complex there for Starship. For at
Stage 2 launch
Starbase,
load has started.
the on launch pad itself didn't take that much time. It was just the pillars for the orbital launch pad were there for like over a year almost until something big happened, and then all of a sudden the launch tower was built, and then Macazilla was installed, and the table took forever, but it finally is there. So
Yeah. I mean, from what we've seen, I believe that now they know more about what they're building, what they're developing. Now they have a lot more data from test flights and testing Mechazilla and that kind of thing.
right,
I certainly believe that the development of a tower or another Launch Complex 39A, is definitely going to be a lot quicker than it was at Starbase. Because don't forget, this
yeah.
is currently experimental. It's never been done by anyone else before.
I mean, I wonder if they're really gonna build a big tower like in Starbase before they did a couple of catching attempts at Starbase.
Yeah,
So because I
I
feel
mean,
like
take a
if
while.
they haven't done any catches yet, why and they're not sure how to make it work, then why would they build a big tower at over at Cape
Yeah,
if
this
the
is
program isn't going to work out the way they think they want?
yeah. NASA are also going to conduct an environmental assessment to
Right,
make sure that SpaceX has the right permissions and can safely develop a Starship launch pad next to 39A. So we're certainly looking at a year, 2 years, maybe even 3.
right. Because SpaceX still just leased the launch pad, right? They didn't buy it or
Yeah,
anything.
right. They currently lease it. Yeah.
Yeah, do we know for how long? Because I read like 20 years or something, but it was extended.
Well, they can renew their contracts for how
Right.
long they need, really. But I do believe actually it's a 20-year contract, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. I mean, NASA has no need to reclaim it because they still have 39B. Um,
Yeah,
and they only need 39B for SLS essentially. And SpaceX has done so many changes to 39A that I think would be kind of difficult to revert those changes.
yeah,
I suppose they had like restrictions and boundaries where they can change the launch pad itself, like the tower or the table. But yeah, I still think it wouldn't make sense for NASA to just reclaim it and say we need that now
yeah.
because they could just use 39B, and they also have the big $1 billion uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the launch tower for SLS. Um,
Mobile transporter.
right. Yeah.
We also have SpaceX Live right now, so their
Oh,
broadcast
perfect.
has stopped.
So we'll just fade over to the SpaceX launch live stream in just a minute or two.
Stage 2 LOX load has begun. It seems as though the SpaceX live stream is currently unlisted.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean sometimes you can access it from like through their website when you press
Yeah,
watch. Then you can access the live stream. It's
for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just under T minus 12 minutes. At around T minus 7 minutes, they're going to start to pre-chill the engines. So they're just going to flow some oxygen into the first stage engines to cool them down and not to avoid any thermal shocks to the systems.
Yep.
Um,
So that's known as engine chill.
right. And it it also just kind of starts mid-flight for the second stage. They usually call it out, but it seems like that the second stage doesn't take that much time to chill the engines. I mean, if the engines get chilled, the first stage engines get chilled at T minus 7 minutes, and the second stage usually starts chilling at like T plus maybe 1 minute and 30 seconds or something.
Yeah.
Apparently, the second stage doesn't need that much time to cool down.
So here we are. We have a live feed of SpaceX, and their host is Andy Chan.
Right. The mystery guy who didn't have a Twitter account, or at least no one found his Twitter account for a long time, till all of a sudden it was just there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it looks like a beautiful day for launch, and there's
it
just
does.
a few clouds to the left, but other than
Those
that,
clouds shouldn't be a
blue
concern.
skies.
I don't think those clouds will be a big concern.
No. Ooh, the lens of the stream looks a little bit like fish-eyed to me. It looks a
Yeah,
bit bent.
definitely. Look at that. You got the sun directly above the pad. That's what we love to see.
Yeah. I don't know why, but for some reason the SpaceX 39A launch tower, umbilical tower thing always kind of looks like a PC case, like a
It
power
does.
PC.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only the rings from the vents and stuff are missing, but yeah, it could be mistaken for a PC case. I mean, where did the rotating structure from shuttle go? I mean, obviously they didn't need it,
They just
and
took it apart. Yeah.
yeah, and I think it would make a cool museum piece. Obviously, it's not intact anymore, but it would be cool. I guess a big museum piece would have been nice. Does LC-39B still have the rotating structure? They disassemble it as well.
There we have a live view of the drone ship as well, which seems to be covered in water as well. That'll be
Yeah,
the fire suppression system, I believe, that's making sure the deck of the drone ship is white enough so that any soot or anything doesn't cause a fire or cause anything to explode touchdown.
right. You know what happened to the booster that engines were kind of buckled after landing? I suppose it was
It's 9.
B1069. Yeah.
We never
Um,
heard anything else on that, so I'm not sure what
right.
happened to B69.
I mean, maybe it'll just reappear after major refurbishment, or it'll just be a display piece or something. Because I feel like they still are trying to make it work again and maybe replace the engines or whatever broke, or just the nozzles.
I
Um,
mean, all they need to do really is replace the engines and replace the landing legs.
right. So I suppose they're going to do that because it's still a fairly new booster.
So,
If it were like 11 flights old or something, maybe they'd say,
When you
okay, the
go back.
refurbishment is more expensive than just using a new booster, maybe. But I don't
yeah,
know how it works. So
I don't know. I don't even think it's left the port of Port Canaveral yet, but
oh yeah, well, I don't know either. I mean, they could just they can't do anything with the booster at port, right? They
no,
basically
they
have
can't.
to ship it to one of the facilities at the Cape.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no need to send it back to Hawthorne, right? I mean, they can't do anything there, can they?
yeah.
I mean, they could just get some new engines or something,
Day
but
1, RP1
they
loading.
It
wouldn't need
depends
the
on if
booster
they
for that.
replace those engines.
Right.
I mean, it depends on cost as well because the cost of replacing one engine might be that much that they're just like, there's no point trying to refurbish this booster.
Right.
It did
Right.
damage and it came back with major damage, so they might just be like, there's no point refurbishing it. But yeah, it's definitely odd that we haven't heard anything else about that booster.
Yeah.
No one's seen port,
I
so
wonder if
we're
they
not
can
sure.
just yeah. I wonder if they can just replace the nozzle, because I read at some point they considered just making Merlin engines and changing the nozzles for, if they want to use a vacuum engine, they can just swap out the nozzle, but they kind of tossed that plans once they used the exhaust from the gas generator as coolant.
Yeah,
So I wonder if they still can just change nozzles like that. Because then the refurbishment would be cheaper because they wouldn't have to replace the engines, just the nozzles. So
I'd definitely be happy to see
Thank you for the
B1069 fly again. I mean, when it
right,
got announced that there was a booster named B1069, Twitter went crazy because for
yeah,
some reason everybody loves the number 69.
yeah. And no, it also was kind of a bummer that the booster got damaged that badly on its first
Yeah,
flight.
Strong back retract is
Yeah.
starting.
Oh, and there's I completely missed the squared Starlink terminal, because it just it was just kind of there. I remember the round, almost sphere, half sphere looking terminal that they used,
yeah.
and now all of a sudden it's squared. I wonder if the shape of the antenna actually has an impact on the connectivity or the speed. I don't know.
I'm not sure, but recently they got announced that Starlink Premium is now a thing.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that program works, considering Starlink is still in beta.
Yeah. And on Reddit, I saw a couple of posts where people had two terminals and they almost got double the speeds of just one terminal. So I wonder if like big companies or something are considering Starlink as their internet provider, if they can just order more terminals to get more speed or higher speeds. I wonder if that's a thing. Oh, and we can actually see the strong back opening up and retracting,
Yep. So
which
we
is a
strong
good indicator.
retracting program.
Yeah, so the kind of claw thing opens up first. So the little two arms on the very top, just below the
Day
fairing,
1,
are
loading
opening
mode
up, and
complete.
then the big transport director structure moves back just a couple of degrees to make space for the booster, and then at liftoff, it moves away out of the way, so it doesn't get damaged. Oh, and in this shot, you can actually see some of the tanks just down the line. So, yeah. And maybe to the right of this shot, you can barely make out the beginnings of the starship pad, as far as I can
Yeah,
tell. So they're just
certainly.
clearing space and putting sand there to build.
We are currently 3 minutes away from liftoff.
Right. So
So it seems like it's either our stream's delayed or launch got pushed back by at least a minute because
Day
from this
2, loading
timing
is complete.
it's like 6:14 we're expecting liftoff. So I don't know. It might have just been our stream delay, but I'm not sure.
Maybe. I think it
liftoff
might
has started.
actually be the launch might be delayed by just a minute because the original timing was 7:13 Central European time, so which is
Yeah.
in exactly 42 minutes. So I suppose the launch got delayed slightly by just a couple of minutes. So yeah, but it looks like it's gonna go anyway.
Certainly does.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
So this is booster 1061, and it's the 6th
Launch
flight,
director,
right?
go for launch.
Yep.
Okay. So, do you know what other missions that this booster performed?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I will have a look, and it's something we can discuss.
All right.
Next Spaceflight is the best website to check for this.
Yeah.
So to those who may not use
Falcon
Next
9 is in
Spaceflight, I'd
startup.
recommend
At this point,
using
both
him.
stages are beginning to pressurize for liftoff.
Next
We are
Spaceflight
expecting
is
the
run
launch
by
director
Michael
to give the
Bayer, I
final go for
believe.
launch here in just a few
Yes.
seconds.
Yes.
Launch
When
director,
let's
go
also
have
for launch.
SpaceX posts the
And with that
mission
call out, all
history of
systems
the
are go for
boosters,
launch.
actually.
Let's
Just
listen in
saw
to
that
terminal
on the
count
website
and watch as
under
Falcon
the
9
launch
takes
tab.
out 49 Starlink satellites.
Okay,
into
so
orbit.
this booster has previously flown the Crew 1 and Crew 2 missions,
T-minus 30
along with
seconds.
Right.
SXM-8, the CRS-23 mission, the IXPE mission, and now the Starlink 4-7 mission.
All right. So a crew booster, which is
T-minus
pretty
15.
cool.
We are
Now
in Falcon 9 is in startup, T-minus 1
T-minus
minute.
10, 9,
we're
Eight,
actually tracking T-minus
7,
10 seconds. I think your
6,
stream is delayed
5,
heavily.
4,
Right.
3,
Yeah,
Three
it
Two.
is.
seconds
I'm
away.
having,
1.
I'm having connections.
Liftoff.
Issues.
Starlink 4-7.
All right, and we have the liftoff.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
I'm having major connection
Point
issues.
chamber pressures are nominal.
I've major seen liftoff on my screen after refreshing this time.
No, you seem to have major connectivity issues right now. Coming through pretty robot-y.
We are T plus 40
I'm
seconds
at
into
T plus
liftoff.
30
Falcon 9 has
seconds. Where are you
successfully cleared
At
pad
around
39A
T
and
plus
carrying our
45.
stack of 49
Okay,
Starlink
5
satellites into orbit. Moments ago, we began to throttle down the engines on the first stage in preparation
so
for
we
max
have the
Q. This is where
beautiful
the vehicle
onboard
will
shots
experience the
with
highest amount
LC-39B
of
in the
aerodynamic
background where
stresses
it's gonna
during
lift off
ascent.
from. And you can see the Falcon 9 rolling. And as we discussed earlier, the second stage is going to perform this dog-leg maneuver on the way up, just to avoid land masses.
And there was max
And
Q.
the boosters
We are getting some
landing
great views of this
is
daytime
not going to
liftoff.
do a big of
In about a minute, we
inclination
have
changes
3 events happening in
on
quick succession.
during ascent,
First up is
just
main
so it
engine
can
cutoff, also
land
known as
on
MECO,
over the
followed by
ocean
stage
easily.
separation, and then
So,
second engine
yeah.
start
So
1,
we
also known as
are
SES1.
T plus 1 minute
During
35
main engine
seconds
cutoff,
in.
this is where all
right.
9 Merlin engines on the first stage will shut down
Coming
in
up
order
here
to slow the
short
vehicle down in
on
preparation
main engine
for
cutoff
stage
and
separation.
stage separation.
During stage separation, the first and second stages will separate from one another.
Oh,
The
you can
first
see the
stage will make
plume
its
of
way
the
back
engines
to our drone
expand.
ship in the
That's
Atlantic
always
Ocean
cool
for its
to
landing
see.
attempt. And the second stage will continue with the third event, which is second engine start 1. This is where the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and
Oh, we got
continue
some
to propel
beautiful
the
ground
second
shots.
stage, along with the
My
49
stream
Starlink
has caught
satellites
up.
into
We are
orbit.
2 minutes 10 seconds in.
Perfect.
Those 3 events should be happening here in about 20 seconds.
Look at that plume. Absolutely amazing.
All right, so we're just a couple of seconds away from MECO and stage separation. There we got the
MECO.
inside shot from the inner stage.
And there we have it. We have main engine cutoff.
That's right, and
Stage separation.
Stage
confirmed.
separation. And there's ignition of the
Look.
second stage.
From the interstage.
Right.
Next fairing separation confirmed.
And
So
the
we've
fairings
had
are going to separate
successful
as
main
well.
engine cutoff,
And
successful
there we
stage
have it.
separation, successful
As
second
you
engine
can see,
start
ooh,
on the
beautiful camera shot.
second stage,
Yeah.
and then also fairing
The
deployed.
second stage
On
just
screen
floating
right now,
away.
you can see the
Look
first
at those
stage
fairings
booster
you
at
can
the
see
bottom
on
of
either
the screen,
side of this screen.
making its way
Wow.
back along with the two fairing halves. They've deployed. They were at the top of the screen, but they'll make their way back
You can see the
towards Earth
engines
and
of
be
the booster
recovered by
on.
our recovery vessel,
Yeah.
Doug. As a reminder, those fairing halves,
All
one
right, so the
flown,
Griffins are
one was
deployed
flying
on
for
the
the
first
fourth time,
stage,
and
so
the other was flying for
it is
its
just
sixth
gonna
time.
coast along its trajectory.
So a couple of views on screen right
and
now.
gonna
On the
land
right-hand side
on
of your screen is a
a
view of our
shortfall of
single
gravitas.
Merlin vacuum engine on the
A
second
drone ship
stage.
in
Those Starlink
Blue
satellites that we have been talking about all webcasts, those are located on the opposite end of that engine.
So
On the left-hand side of the screen is a view from the top of our first stage
yeah, so
looking
you can
down.
see the
Its job
second
right now is
stage
to head back
just
towards
burning there.
the drone ship, a shortfall of
And,
gravitas, and make its
yeah.
sixth
I
landing
always love that
attempt.
we have the first stage telemetry now. I can
In
remember
order
they
to make its
used
way
to have
back,
it
the first
very
stage
early
has
on
two burns today.
in the
Both
program
vehicles are on nominal
of landing the
trajectories.
boosters,
The
and then they
first is the entry burn,
didn't
where
for a
3
long
of the
time,
Merlin
and
engines
now all of
will
a sudden we
reignite,
have the first
and this
stage
helps to
telemetry
slow
again,
the
which is
stage
pretty cool.
down as it re-enters the upper
Yeah, it
parts
certainly
of
is.
the Earth's atmosphere.
And it's
The
also
second
awesome
burn
to
is
see
the
how
landing burn.
far
This is a
these
single engine
broadcasts have
burn
been
that will bring
developed,
the
because
speed,
obviously
the
you used to
vehicle
have
speed
the
down
early days of
rapidly in
SpaceX
order to land on our drone
where
ship.
they had, I'm not going
The
to say
first burn is
terrible,
expected to
but
start around the T
basic
plus
overlays.
6 minute and
Right.
47
I mean,
second mark.
they
And the
used
second
to
burn is going to be
the
starting at a
hosts
T plus 8
used
minute
to
and
then
26 second.
like just before like this big screen, and there was the footage, and they were just talking over it. So, and then they kind of for the Falcon Heavy launches, they did a lot of work on there. You can see a
Yeah.
gap between the first Falcon Heavy launch and the others. And yeah, so you can clearly see that they tried to improve their webcast, and I think the results are great. And I also love how the launches are covered by one SpaceX host and a NASA host, so you kind of have both of the sides, which is also pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely a big shout out to Photon Empress on Twitter. She does most of the SpaceX graphic and video work.
Yeah.
So if you don't already, I'd also go and follow her on Twitter. Again, I'll leave the link of her Twitter page in the description of the stream, so you can go and follow her too.
Yeah. So while the second stage is still burning nominally, stage already passed its apoapsis and is now still aligning itself for the entry burn, which is gonna come up in just a few minutes. Yeah, so entry burn is gonna be at T plus 6 minutes and 48 seconds, so in just
Stage one,
roughly
entry burn
30
safe.
seconds from now on.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Those white plume of gas you can see on your left-hand side of the screen is the
Stage 1 entry burn.
cold gas from the RCS thrusters, which align the booster as it makes its path towards re-entry.
Safe.
Right, because right now there's not a lot of air, so the Griffins aren't that effective.
Both vehicles are
So
going nominal
they just use the RCS thrusters to align the booster,
And there
just
we have
as MJ said.
startup.
Right, there's entry burn. So these three engines that are firing right now are just slowing down the in order to avoid the booster getting shredded by the effects of the atmosphere while going 7,500 kilometers an hour.
And got down of that entry
Stage
burn.
1 transonic.
Yeah. So it effectively just slowed down by about 1,500 kilometers an hour, which seems like a lot, but compared to orbit, which is around 27,000, it's not very that big of a difference. And now the atmosphere is just gonna do the rest. And there's a final burn, the
We
landing
lost
burn.
the booster feed,
Stage 2
Yeah.
terminal guidance.
but we still have
Right.
telemetry in the bottom left-hand corner, so that is always good to see.
Right. I mean, one time the booster kind of died during entry, and we all of a sudden didn't have any telemetry. So that's
Yeah,
always a sign that something is wrong. But as long as you still have telemetry, everything is at least okay.
let's hope we regain that camera feed for landing.
Okay, so the
Which
landing
is
burn is
good for
roughly going to start at
landing.
8 minutes and 26 seconds.
There we have that landing burn start
Right,
up.
so now
Good orbit
the
insertion.
center engines. Oh, and there we have the
We
feed.
have
Nice.
the camera feed. Awesome, good to see.
Yeah.
Making its
So
way
now you
back
can
to the shortfall of gravitas.
Yeah, now you can really see the
And
griffins
boy,
working. Oh, and we have a shaky signal. Oh, and now we lost it.
oh,
But
that didn't look
and
good.
there we have it. Touchdown on the shortfall of gravitas, almost in the middle.
Oh,
Wow.
bullseye.
Yeah.
Perfect. And now we have second engine cut off as well. So now that second stage will coast.
For about 6 minutes. So they kind of they're not doing the 1 hour missions anymore where they just coast for a little bit, do another burn, and then deploy. So deploy is just going to come up in about 6 minutes. I'm sorry. So it's at T plus 15 minutes and 31 seconds. Yeah, so unfortunately, we're not going to be able to host the deploy of the Starlink satellites. But we will do a tweet when they are deployed. And of course, you can see it on SpaceX's YouTube channel. So,
Well, SpaceX also seemed to have ended their broadcast, so it's a good timing, really.
right. I mean,
It seems
yeah.
SpaceX won't be broadcasting the deployment of those satellites.
Interesting.
So
They
it
haven't
will
done
be
that
confirmed on
prior.
Twitter. So you can follow their SpaceX social media and the Spaceflight Hub social media.
That's right. So they're in orbit normally, so it should deploy in just a couple of minutes. So check out our Twitter account and SpaceX's Twitter account to get the latest information on the mission.
Thank you for joining us, and we will see you again for the next launch very soon.
See ya.